Well, welcome everybody. My name is Greg Ayotte. I'm the Director of Consumer Services with the Brain Injury Association of America, and welcome to this Concussion Awareness Now Champions Rally. We are very happy to have you here today. So basically, what we hope to accomplish in this brief webinar is just to have a couple of folks kind of share their stories around brain injury and concussion, helping folks understand, what it can be like, as well as how they worked with others to kind of help their recovery. Additionally, we also want to talk about being an advocate and an educator. What is that like? And with some tips and strategies, hopefully that can be helpful to folks listening today to take with them. I am very happy to be here today with two very established panelists. We have Dr. Brooke Mills, who is, amongst other things, the founder of National Concussion Awareness Day, and Erica Renee Walker, who is the founder of TBI Uncovered. So I thought I'd start by just letting you each kind of tell your story in your own words, and we'll start with Erica.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm honored to be here to share my story on Concussion Awareness Now. Well, 2 days after my 21st birthday, I sustained my traumatic brain injury due to a gunshot wound to my head. And I've had to go through several years of speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, which I still am in physical therapy and OT. Currently, I'm not doing anything now because I put therapy on pause because I'm dealing with some nerve issues. And so once I get that resolved, I will continue to resume therapy. But this year's recovery have been, I've learned more about myself than I can ever imagine. And I just have a wealth of knowledge to share with everyone. I'm just glad to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And Brooke?
Yes, just on March 10th, this current year, 2024, I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary of my concussion. I was in my mandatory freshman year of high school gym class, and I obviously had never played any sports before. I was not a competitive sports player in any regards, and so I was just exposed to this normal opportunity that I had to be a part of in order to graduate high school. And when I went to go pick up a ball, a boy went to go kick that same ball and ended up kicking the left side of my face, knocking me unconscious. So I had the impact of that. His foot, which is an average of 70 miles per hour for an average boy to kick a soccer ball. And then I also had the impact of hitting my head, knocking unconscious on the gym floor. And I continued to see a lot of challenges throughout the rest of my life. Navigating that was challenging. I know we're going to get into that a little bit, but I lost about 5 years of memory. Had a lot of ongoing headaches, nausea, vomiting, things that I had never experienced before in my lifetime, as well as vertigo and sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to light. I wasn't able to go to school anymore and really had to learn how to navigate this new way of life at 14 years old.
Wow, thank you. So let me also ask, can you tell me a little bit about some of the kind of like the misperceptions that folks had initially as you're trying to get folks to understand a little bit about kind of brain injury and concussion? We'll start with Brooke this time.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I was faced with very quickly, and why I mentioned that I was not part of any sports or competitively playing basketball or soccer or football, or putting myself, quote unquote, in harm's way, was that I didn't fit that stereotypical mold of somebody who had suffered a brain injury. And so when I did return to learn and return to school and the classroom environment, my teachers did not have much sympathy for me. They had heard about concussions through football, thought it was something that would be resolved within 2 weeks. And when I went into this prolonged symptom challenges that lasted months into years, nobody could really relate to that. And so I had a huge challenge that I was continually faced with in understanding that anyone can suffer brain injury, anyone can suffer a concussion. And just because I didn't look like the average high school football player does not mean that my symptoms shouldn't have been validated or taken seriously. So really recreating that narrative and changing the stereotype on what a concussion should look like has been a continual challenge and hurdle, because I think it's so important that everyone recognizes that anyone could suffer a brain injury or a concussion, no matter where they come from, what they're doing. Car accidents, slips and falls. I live in New England. We just got snow last night. Ice, hides under the snow. People slip and fall all the time. I know head injuries, especially during car accidents, are not often looked at. We really look at these physical injuries, cuts, scrapes, bruises, and whatnot. And after I had been kicked in the head, I had a black eye that developed on my left eye. And once that healed, everyone thought I was healed. There's no visual signs and signals that somebody is going through something internally. So it's been a great honor to be able to partner with the Brain Injury Association of New Hampshire and the Brain Injury Association of America to be a peer-to-peer lecturer and help really change that narrative and change the stereotypes that that anyone can suffer a brain injury.
Thank you. Yeah. Erica, what about your experience after your injury? What were the things that you noticed? Trying to explain it to other folks.
Well, for me, my injury was such a freak accident that when I woke up at the hospital, I wasn't aware of anything that happened. I later found out that it's called post amnesia. We don't remember what happened with the accident. And so I didn't even know for myself what happened to me. I just knew I was in the hospital and I was looking around. I couldn't talk for about 4 months. And so my brain didn't think like what happened to you, where you at, what happened. It didn't think any, I say this all the time, I had no thoughts. And so really it's kind of like, what do you mean you had no thoughts? And so I just would see like nurses and doctors coming in my room, looking at my eyes and things like that, checking things. And I didn't know what was going on. But prior to getting injured, I was in college, my sophomore year of college. I worked a full-time job, went to school full-time, in my own place. I was pretty independent college life, get my life started, and then wham, this happens. And so this was like a total shock to everyone. And when I started in the hospital, I didn't, like I said, didn't know much of anything. And I couldn't, like I said, couldn't talk, I wasn't thinking about anything. And so when I did get aware of more things going on, when I finally got to my rehab center, I remember my therapist, it's funny now I think about it, but it was that's so funny back then. But they would like my legs and stuff like that. And I'm like thinking to myself, what are you doing? And I was not cooperate. I was not very cooperative at all. I didn't want nobody to touch me. I was very mean and I didn't want to do anything. So I didn't know what was going on. But when I finally found out what happened to me, I was like, okay, now it makes sense. Now I gotta fight. Like I gotta get back to how I was before, even better than before. And so it gave me more of an incentive to get better. And then as far as like I would see people, progressing, like, why am I progressing like that? Not understanding the totality of my traumatic brain injury. I didn't have a doctor say, well, hey, this is going to take a long time to heal. It's going to be a long recovery road for you. Nobody explained anything like that to me. Not that I remember anyway. And so I didn't have any knowledge. And so that made me curious. And I'm a very curious person. I made the dean's list, after my injury, things like that. And, like you had I did have a brain injury. And I was on the dean's list and made I had graduated medical lied at my college. And so people are so amazed by that. But I've always, God's always blessed me with the knowledge to be smart. And so this always been a thing of mine ever since I was a kid. But people are so, in my African American community, and especially, people don't know about brain injuries. And I remember when I was younger, I think I had a concussion when I was younger. I got hit in the head with a metal bat. I don't recall going to the hospital. I don't recall anything. I was maybe 5 years old when this happened. And I remember the kid hit me in the head, and he didn't know that I was behind him. And I just remember falling out, I guess, and just I don't remember what happened. I guess I don't know. I blacked out. I don't know, but it's that's not very fair to me. But I could have had a cushion way back then, but I didn't go to the hospital to my knowledge. And so it's very important that people know, even hitting the head lightly, you need to go get it checked out, especially if you can't go to sleep. Don't go to sleep, but you need to get your head checked out. Any type of head injury, like anything that be so minute, but you got to get checked out. And so brain injury awareness has been very important to me since my injury, and like I said, especially for my community. So that's my intent for
Yeah.
everything.
It's one of the things we hear a lot when we get calls from all over the country on the 800 line at the Brain Injury Association. Certainly, this is a common issue about either not fitting the stereotypical what you would think, or thinking, well, once the person is kind of
Mm-hmm.
talking again, then they're fine. Everything's fine. So we hear that a lot. I can remember this one call we got. It was some older woman who had contacted us, same like slip and fall,
Mm-hmm.
hit her head. Wasn't a serious injury, and that she kind of felt woozy, but not terrible. But then over the next few days, she started to get some symptoms and started to not feel quite right, and was trying to explain it to her family. And the family's like, you're fine. Just tough it out. And it took, to going to the doctor and getting some information and getting the doctor to talk to the family to help them see, like, no, this is going to take a little bit to recover from. I think that's the other kind of misperception we often hear, is the people don't think about how long it can take to recover. What the timetable for recovery is can be much greater than kind of think what most people think about in kind of recovering from any type of injury. So that's another kind of common misperception. But I also wanted to ask too about, what were some of the things that you found were particularly helpful or useful? So what helped you along the course of recovery? We'll start with Erica this time.
What helped me during the course of recovery? Um, Several things. Prayer, going to church. My faith is very important to me, and as well as my family members, talking to me, encouraging me on a daily basis. Therapists talking to me. I have people in my ear. And like I said, with this accident, it was a freak accident, and I had two brain surgeries. I couldn't talk. I had a stroke on my right side, so I had a lot of stuff going on. Like, it was like 10 things going on at one time, and so I had to check my throat as well. So I couldn't talk for 4 months. There
Mm-hmm.
was just a number of things going on. So all these things I had to heal, and so with all that, it took a lot of mental capacity and mental work to first see myself as normal, because you're injured. People think, oh, you're not normal anymore, and you're just labeled as this injured person, but you're still a person in the day. You're still visible. And so another thing that kind of you have to make your mental health as well is intact, because I remember getting on my family for a long time would let me get online because I didn't know what I would see. And then when I did get on, I was so anxious to get online because I had a lot of friends and stuff like that. And when I did finally get online, I saw a comment that disturbed me, and it said RIP. And I was just like, RIP, I'm still here though. Like,
What do you say?
it is like I'm like a ghost,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it just make your mental capacity is intact. You gotta make sure you're ready for whatever the like brings it, because you never know what you're gonna see, what people are gonna say. And I said, I had family members, constantly talking to me. And even when I couldn't talk, I had I call it ABC board, but it was an ABC board. It's a piece of
Yeah,
paper with ABC written on it. And I'll
yeah.
point to what I want to say. And so, but you just have to find tactics and ways to manage through it. And I thank God that I've been strong enough to push through it, and He gave me the tools, and I did thank you to have to make it through
That
it.
is definitely one thing about kind of recovery after a brain injury. It is definitely one of those pathways of just figure out the next step, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's gonna work right now?
Mm-hmm.
It might be different a month from now, or 2 months from now, but that idea of, I'm just one step, one next step,
One day at a time.
one small step forward. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Brooke, what were some of the things that you found that were particularly like helpful or useful kind of as you went through your recovery?
Yeah, I had to continue to remind myself that every brain injury is so unique, and so my healing journey was going to be unique as well. And I think both of you just touched on that, that it's impossible to compare your journey to somebody else's because every brain injury is so unique. So the way that you heal, the way that you adapt, and the things that you need to be able to help adapt to life post brain injury are going to be unique to you. So personally, for me, I am a chiropractor now. So my mom's a chiropractor. I'm a second generation chiropractor. So I, was able to be adjusted, making sure that my brain and my body were communicating optimally together through subluxation based principled chiropractic care, which was really pivotal for me. I also included a lot of anti-inflammatory foods in my diet. I ate pints and pints and pints of blueberries, lots of good fats, avocado and salmon. It really taught me that I needed to make sure that I was getting proper nutrients, all the sleep that I could, giving my body the tools that it needed to be able to regenerate brain cells and heal tissues, and help me get back to the places that I was before, and help me become the Brooke that I was before my brain injury. I also had to rely heavily on notepads, figuring out what was best for me to be able to succeed and understand what my life was post brain injury. I had a lot of memory issues. I touched on that. And I ended up losing about 5 years of memory, 2.5 years from before my brain injury that I have no recollection of, and 2.5 years after, where my brain couldn't create and store and maintain new memories. So I frequently would walk into a room and would forget why I was going in there. I wasn't able to keep up with my schoolwork and my grades in the same capacity that I was able to previously. So it really takes a lot of different unique coping mechanisms that are catered towards what your symptoms are. So I had a lot of memory issues, and that seemed to be one of the deficits that was most frustrating to me, because I lost all of my friendships. I wasn't able to remember inside jokes. My brain still doesn't think memories are important. I can watch the Titanic over and over and again. I know like the plot line, but every time I watch a movie, it's like the first time. So it's very funny and unique how the brain works. I take a lot of photos. I use and rely heavily on a calendar so that I don't forget about anything or anyone. And I also relied heavily on just alternative medicine and alternative opportunities. Unfortunately, when I was hit my 3-month mark after my brain injury, I was sent to a concussion specialist who didn't take a whole lot of time to get to know me and what I was dealing with, and prescribed me 6 medications, one of which was an Alzheimer's medication that was still in trial. And I was 14 years old, and that wasn't something that I was really ready to commit to going down that road. And I wanted to allow my brain and my body to heal in the best capacity that I could. So I also used hyperbaric oxygen chambers, IV glutathione. Glutathione was a great opportunity for a blood-brain barrier boost, helping heal brain tissue and rid the cerebral spinal fluid of tissue that has been damaged. So I really think that every brain injury is so unique, and you have to remind yourself that you cannot compare your journey to somebody else's, because you just need to navigate and take those next steps that you and your body and your brain needs.
That's right.
That's definitely true. Definitely true. So each of you have obviously had different kind of experiences, but certainly hear some kind of common themes about the importance of kind of like understanding you can't compare your injury to someone else's. Your path is going to be your path, but also the importance of support of, like, family and friends, getting connected with good rehabilitation professionals that help you understand the injury and what your recovery might look like. Certainly is a big part of I think of the journey and understanding the injury. So I always call it good I know it's not the right word. Good patient education is key to good recovery, because if you can understand a little bit more about your injury, how it impacts you day to day, that's the foundation for, all right, this is where I'm at. This is the beginning of my journey. So that's when you understand that, kind of moving forward becomes a little less overwhelming. certainly still is a long journey, but something that you have some foundation, some basis of, all right, I understand where I'm at now. So one of the other questions I also had was, you guys both work to try to educate, do some outreach, educate others about brain injury. And that's the other part that we wanted to talk about today, was that for folks who are, they want to go and educate and help raise awareness and understanding about brain injury, but they're like, well, how do I do that? What were the ways that you started to do that? What was the thing that you started with when you started to try to educate others? And we'll start with Erica.
So once I got to a place where I could talk about it, because with my injury, in my situation, it was considered a well, I was with three other young ladies besides myself. It was my birthday weekend. I had just turned 21 2 days prior, and so my situation was like investigation type thing, and so it was a lot of moving parts behind that, and so when I felt safe enough to speak about it, talk about, because gun violence is just it hurt right now. And so once all that died down, I was comfortable talking about it. Um, I did videos, and I did videos. I just kept them to myself. I didn't listen to social media, nothing. I just kept to myself. It's just my therapy for getting out my feelings or whatever. And I also wrote down how I was feeling, and I'm an artist, so I like writing and things like that. I do voice memos on my phone sometimes, so they get full and I gotta write some stuff. But I do voice memos, and I did that. So creating videos helped me initially. And you have to share everything you want to. Keep in your drafts. And I remember when I finally did write about my story, it was on Facebook. And do y'all remember those notes or whatever? They had
Yeah,
like
yeah.
section. So I'm thinking it's just me. It's just my page. Just it's only for me. I hit publish. People were commenting like, "Oh, how did you see that?" I'm like, "What?" So my brain and I clicked that, or because publish means it's gonna be spread out worldwide. And so I was saying comments. I was so nervous, like, "Oh my God, I don't think about it," but I received more love and support than I ever imagined. And so that worked out for me. That worked out for me. And so I would say create videos when you're comfortable and ready to publish it or whatever. Make sure you want to publish it, and make sure the ins and outs of it or whatever. So the create videos worked for me. Messaging people who I was curious about, personally, before I put it on their wall or something like that. So for example, on the Me Too book, I would inbox you and say, "Hey, book, could you say more about your injury? I had an injury myself. Could you're comfortable talking about it?" And so messaging people directly that way. And I watched The Curious Mind, and so create my platform TV Uncovered was therapy for me as well. And initially started off with just me and another young lady, and I said, okay, I want to meet people all over the world. So it's like getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now I message people, hey, do you want to be on here and say your story, or whatever, and advocate with me? And they said, yeah. And so TV Uncovered was birthed or whatever. So that's how I did it. And so you cannot be afraid to put yourself out there whenever you are comfortable. You gotta just go for it. Just do it. Just jump. And like I say, just do it. You gotta just jump in and do it, because you never know. Like Brooke said, you never know who you're gonna impact, inspire. You just never know you're gonna reach some.
Boy,
It's not for us. It's for other people. So
it sounds like yours was almost inadvertent, right? You put the notes in thinking, oh, that's just for me. And then all of a sudden people see it and they're like typing
oh my
comments like, oh, people are interested in this. And they are, yeah. So it's that inadvertent, like, oh, wait,
goodness.
there's something
Yeah,
here to it. That's
yeah,
fantastic though. But then you took it and ran with it. So you
yeah,
went and, all right, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? That's fantastic.
yeah.
And Brooke, what was your kind of, how did you end up starting?
Yeah, it's a very frequent start that I think a lot of other brain injury survivors have, is feeling very alone. At 14 years old, trying to figure out what a concussion was, because I had never truly been educated on what a concussion was, what my signs and symptoms were, and trying to find other individuals who had a story like mine was non-existent. And so the summer after my brain injury, so about 4 months later, I started a blog. I just wanted to be able to post and share different information, new studies that were coming out, share my personal experiences to just help somebody else that might be in my position not feel so alone. And so I really just started thinking, granted, state-wise, I'm here in the state of New Hampshire. And so I started a blog. It was called Finding My Way, and it was written by a 14-year-old post-brain injury little gal. And I talked about, different stories of navigating high school post-brain injury. I was a freshman when I was kicked in the head, and returning to learn. I was the students that spearheaded the Return to Learn guidelines in my high school of 700 people. And Return to Learn guidelines had been out and established for the 4 years prior. So it was very unique to be put in that position, knowing that I was not the first student to suffer a concussion in 4 years at my massive high school. So I really talked about navigating that. I talked about a lot of my memory issues, the humor that comes with having memory problems. I'm also allergic to gluten, and back 10 years ago, it was really hard to find gluten-free cookies. And I so clearly remember having a package of 2 cookies and putting one away for later after I had like my tutoring session for the day. And I searched for the second cookie for 2 weeks. I kid you not, 2 weeks. I looked for this second cookie, and out of nowhere, it hits me that I ate both cookies, that initial day before my tutoring session.
That's
So
why I
it's
can't
those
find it.
really, yeah, so I couldn't find it. It was those humorous moments of post brain injury. I know we all have them who has suffered a brain injury in some capacity. There's some things that you're able to look back and provide some light on and some humor. So it was really all about navigating that, getting involved with my Brain Injury Association of New Hampshire. And then I continued to want to do more. My grandfather was a state trooper in the state of New Hampshire, and he always told me that everything happens for a reason. And I found that being involved and being able to provide and give back in this capacity that I was uniquely put in the position to, provided me an opportunity for healing and an opportunity to be empowered by my story and not continue to play that victim mindset, and really just get out there to help support other individuals that were going through something similar or who didn't come out as lucky as I did. And so I started as a peer-to-peer lecturer for the state of New Hampshire, speaking to different high schools and middle schools across the state to encourage students to take concussions seriously. That was one of the biggest things that I was faced with going back into high school, was that nobody took concussion seriously. And so the fact that I was taking my concussion seriously, I was bullied for it. I had to wear sunglasses in school because my eyes were so sensitive to light. I had special, arrangements where I didn't have to do everything that all the other students had to, because I would get mentally fatigued. And so I truly felt that changing the narrative and helping students realize that our brains are important and that we need them for the rest of our lives was incredible. So after that, I started a Concussion Awareness Day in the state of New Hampshire. At the time, our Governor Maggie Hassan, she's now a senator, was able to create a proclamation with myself. And we had a New Hampshire-wide Concussion Awareness Day where I was able to be on radio shows and help educate people on the signs and symptoms of concussions. And then in 2016, with the U.S. Patent and Trading Office, I created National Concussion Awareness Day, which is the third Friday of every September. I strategically put it on the third Friday of every September because I felt like it was the time that sports were in full swing, students were in the classrooms, and I never wanted National Concussion Awareness Day to land on a Saturday or Sunday where I couldn't in front of students. So it's always been a mission and a goal of mine to be able to educate, provide an opportunity for students to realize that not all injuries are visible and that we need to continue to provide compassion and just love for one another, because you never know what somebody's going through, whether that might be a mental health struggle, after a brain injury, which is very, very common, or an invisible injury like an autoimmune disease or a brain injury. So I found it extremely rewarding to be in this realm and continue to give back, because 10 years post injury, only having a little bit of memory issues and vertigo once in a while, I know that I'm really fortunate and really lucky, and not everybody else is as fortunate. So it's been an honor to be involved.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to encourage folks, they can use the question box, I think it's a question box on your screen, to be able to type in questions that we can try to address in the time that we have. So one of the questions that came in is there something that each of you are doing now that you only started doing after your brain injury? I'm gonna start with Erica, because she clearly had something she was thinking of.
No, it just hit me out of nowhere. Honestly, I want to be a radio talk show host before this even happened. And so this has opened a whole new world for me. And so I never saw myself being an international speaker. I never seen myself talking to people all over the world. And not saying it couldn't got there, but I just didn't think anything of it. I just had my gold radio personality behind the scenes. I'm kind of shy in a sense. I was forced to be out in the front. Guys pushed me out in the front, like, yeah, they be out in the front. So you need an example. And so, like I said, people in my community are not as vocal as I am. I still to this day have yet to see a person advocate. I'm seeing more and more a couple people, but not entirely enough people of color are talking about brain injuries, and it happens so often. And we do not go to the doctor like that. And so it's so imperative that I could be a face or a voice for those of us who do not know the information. So I do videos often and from the community about different topics and stuff. Like I have two books I've dealt with, like sensitivity recently, light sensitivity, noise sensitivity, and just not being able to do a lot of noise and stuff like that, and just the lights would be so bright. Like even now, it's fine right now, but just even doing light sensitivity, things like that. Even like now, and I'm 16 years in, and so it's like this injury goes on. Stuff can happen all the time. You're not gonna remain the same. Because I never dealt with this before. But all of a sudden now it's like more prevalent. But it's definitely imperative that we get awareness out and share our stories and listen to people and ensure that your circle knows what's going on. If you don't feel comfortable talking to like people, virtual, whatever, talk to your family, your friends, people in your household, your neighborhood, so things like that. So, and like Brooke did, start a blog, and so
Start
just
somewhere.
yeah,
That's right. Start somewhere.
Start.
All right, Brooke, I'm going to ask you this question that just came in too. How do you respond when people say, you're not better yet? You still need therapy? You look okay. How do you respond? I think it's a good question. How did you respond at the time? And are there things that you would suggest to others that
Yeah,
are dealing with that now? Like, what would you suggest? How do folks respond to that? That's a great question, by the way.
yeah. I usually go to, the broken bone. You can so visually see that, and you can see that somebody has a cast, and people have sign it, and they want you to get better. And that's usually 6 to 8 weeks for a broken bone, sometimes longer. And then there's also like ligaments and whatnot. But when it comes to brain and invisible injuries, I also touch on like autoimmune diseases, because it seems to be something that individuals have a little bit more of a understanding and concept of. That autoimmune diseases look so different for each individual, and they're very taxing, and they can be different. Living in New England, Lyme disease is very, very common, and that continues to degenerate your body in a different multitude of ways. And so when somebody would face me with that, like, you're not better yet, or like, it's been 3 weeks, you should be back in school, I pretty much would just tell them that It's not how my brain is working. It's not how I've been able to heal. And that I touch on the fact that every brain injury is so unique, and that 30% of concussions go on to this prolonged amount of symptoms. They don't heal in that 2 to 3 weeks that we would all love to see happen. And I know that statistics are going to only continue to come out to provide more reassurance and more opportunity to understand that brain injuries take a long time to heal, and the fact that every brain injury is so unique. So stand firm in who you are and know that your body is doing the best that it can. Really give yourself a great support system. I was 14 years old. I really relied on my mom, and I don't know where I would have been without her. I can not so easily, but now being in the workforce, I can more easily put myself in the shoes of somebody that might have been a mom or a business owner, an entrepreneur, just a working individual, and how navigating returning to work and the life and the things that you actually have to do. You don't have anybody else to do it for you, could be really challenging. So I know that it is so beneficial to surround yourself with a good support system and people that help provide you the reassurance that you're doing the best that you can.
Absolutely.
It's a great answer. I mean, I know when we get that question a lot about how do you deal with that, and I don't have, there's no like magic phrase or word you're going to use that's
There
going to help
isn't.
people see it. But I always try to tell folks, I'm like, you have to think of it as like a teachable moment opportunity. Like they are asking, not because they think, they're asking out of not understanding brain injury. They're not, so they want you to be better. That, it's not a bad intention, but it's just a lack of info. And so I was like, it's an opportunity to help them understand just a little bit more about brain injury. And they could help giving some statistics or sharing some websites or resources that aren't just you, that, hey, there's actually some information out there that's available. So those type of things can be helpful. I also tell folks, like, it may land on deaf ears. Like it may take you saying to somebody 4 times before they start to listen to what you're saying and think, oh, well, maybe this is more complicated than I thought.
Yeah.
That's just part of being human. Like how often do we hear one thing and like change our whole belief set? That very seldom happens, right? It's a process. You have to hear it multiple times and really kind of reflect on it. So, but let's see what else. What other questions do we have coming in? We had a question that came in. What kind of testing do medical professionals do to determine the seriousness of the brain? That's a loaded question. So I'll say there's a few different types of testing that can be done. Like typically for somebody after a brain injury, they're trying to figure out the initial seriousness of the trauma, right? Is there a bleed? Is there, like, they're looking at, is there something immediately needed medical intervention? So that's one thing about the seriousness. But the seriousness of the trauma does not equal the seriousness of the outcome.
Right.
So that's its whole separate question and issue. And that's definitely trickier. So once the person's medically stable, trying to evaluate and assess how much that injury might impact them day to day definitely varies, right? So it's not one test, it's what we call serial testing, right? You're trying to evaluate and test them week over week over week or month over month to see what's impacted now, what seems to be getting better, what seems to be sticking, what's not really working. And so that's my best answer to that question about how do you assess the seriousness of it. So there's kind of two approaches or tiers to that.
I've been happy to see the the grading scale go away, because I couldn't have imagined if somebody had classified me as a very mild concussion and then I had, symptoms go on for the next 8-9 years of my life. So it's a common question that I get about the grading scale, or what level of severity my concussion was. Now, I did lose consciousness for about 5 minutes, but I know individuals who did not lose consciousness and had more deficits in their life than I did post brain injury. So I'm happy to see that was taken away. And although we want to clear everyone and make sure that there's nothing that we could further do with like medical intervention to be able to support individuals, it's really just a baseline understanding that every brain injury is different, and how your brain is going to adapt and return is so unique.
That's a really good point. So we have more than a few folks who said thank you for coming on, kind of sharing your experiences. It's really helpful. My other little plug, I guess, would be, obviously you can go to the Concussion Awareness Now website. Has some great information and resources around concussion and kind of getting checked out. Obviously, you can contact the Brain Injury Association of America, our Brain Injury Information Center. It's 1-800-444-6443 to talk to a brain injury specialist to get information about all different aspects around brain injury. Those are two good resources, and we can certainly connect you with your local resources as well. I want to thank you both for coming on and sharing and encouraging others to to get involved and help to educate others. It's really important to hear stories from folks that have been there. So I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you. Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
I want to thank you all for having me. I want to thank Kathy for this opportunity as well. She just want to ask me to do it. She's the founder for Peak Concussions, and so I want to thank her for thinking of me to be on this panel. So, as well as thanking for being here, and thank you, Mr. Greg, as well.
Excellent. Thank you for coming. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming today. Have a great rest of the day. As always, contact us if you have questions. Take care, everybody.